We have some breaking news we want to share with you now. A Georgia grand jury delivers at least one indictment in the investigation into the Trump 2020 election probe. You're looking live at the Fulton County Courthouse in Atlanta, Georgia. The judge presiding over the grand jury, Judge Robert McBurney, has reviewed and signed the grand jury's findings. This all centers around the former president famously calling Georgia's Secretary of State, suggesting the state's top elections officials could help find votes. It was the release of a recording of that phone call that then prompted the district attorney's office investigation about a month later. Of course, we'll keep you up to date on any other new developments. Now we want to turn to what we have for you on the docket tonight. This is a brand new case out of Mississippi. Two men, a father and son, have been charged with attempted murder after police say they opened fire on a FedEx driver. Thankfully, he wasn't shot. Core TV anchor Ted Rowlands has more for us tonight.
They shot several times into that van trying to kill Mr. Gibson, and he had done nothing wrong. He was simply black while working.
D'Monterrio Gibson was working as a FedEx driver in Brookhaven, Mississippi in January of 2022. He had just dropped off a package on Junior Trail and resumed his route when he says he was being followed closely by a man honking his horn. Then things took a frightening turn.
I drive down about 2 or 3 houses. There's another guy standing in the middle of the road pointing a gun in my vehicle, and he's mouthing the word stop, and he's doing like this. He's like, stop, stop. So I just started shaking my head like, no, I'm not gonna stop. And I duck behind the steering wheel, and I swerve around him as well. As I swerve around him, he starts firing shots at the back of my vehicle, and I'm hearing all the shots here, so I'm just ducking.
Gibson was wearing a FedEx uniform, but his van was unmarked and rented by FedEx from Hertz.
I'm like, they shooting at me. And she like, they shooting at you? I'm like, yes, they shooting at me.
Police identified the men as Gregory and Brandon Case, father and son. Both have been charged with attempted murder, conspiracy to commit first-degree murder, and shooting into a motor vehicle. They have pled not guilty and maintained their innocence.
On the heels of the death of Ahmaud Arbery, we could have had the same situation here.
Gibson's attorney is recalling the case of Ahmaud Arbery. The 25-year-old was jogging in a South Georgia neighborhood when he was chased by 3 white men and shot to death in February of 2020.
We, the jury, find the defendant, Travis McMichael, guilty.
Father and son Gregory and Travis McMichael and Roddy Bryan were all convicted of murder in both state and federal courts. Gibson and his attorneys are urging federal authorities to prosecute this incident as a hate crime.
We've also informed the Department of Justice Civil Rights Division, and they have flagged the case.
I can definitely see the similarities, and that's why I feel it's my responsibility to speak up, because Ahmaud Arbery didn't survive to speak up for himself, so I want to take that upon myself to do that for me and him as well.
Ted Rowlands reporting there for us. Again, this one is starting up with jury selection tomorrow. Opening statements tentatively set for Wednesday, provided they get the jury. I want to bring back in our think tank, Al Weish III, Darnell Crossland, and Jennifer Brandt, all on the show tonight. Boy, oh boy, what he said there in that last bit in Ted's piece about, it does make you think of the Ahmaud Arbery case. I know that's what many of us at Court TV, when we were talking in our editorial meeting earlier. Al, I see you nodding along. Let me start with you on that. That was a case you analyzed quite a bit for us. Do you think this might make the jury think of that case in the way that those citizens, now convicted criminals, acted?
Well, I mean, in some respects, I hope the jury doesn't think about that case, because I want the jury thinking about the case in front of it. It's not supposed to be bringing in prejudices or stuff that's outside the scope of what's put forth at the time of trial. But this is exactly on point. This dysfunctional vigilante syndrome that we see going on is just pathetic. I don't understand how people think that they have the right to just start shooting at somebody. Some poor guy who's got a job that no one really wants, and he's out there doing his work, okay, and he's being shot at for no other reason other than the fact he's in a rental van and he happens to be black. That's a horrendous situation. And the fact that these guys don't call the police. If you see a suspicious vehicle, you see it, call on it. Don't take the justice into your own hands. These guys shouldn't have a license for a bicycle. let alone the ability to have a gun. It's just frightening to me.
It is. I like what you said there. You're right. It is very irresponsible gun ownership. We know, one of the first rules when you, if these people, who knows if they went to any, classes or anything and got any bit of responsible training as citizens, you don't use deadly force to protect property. And here the shooting at this van, even if it is unmarked, Darnell Crossland, let me go to you on this. Even though they're saying, well, it was unmarked, we didn't know. Yeah, but he's wearing a FedEx uniform. He's uniform. This is in a neighborhood with people around. I mean, the whole idea of this, it's pretty wild and preposterous. Do you think these guys have a chance at trial?
Well, I have to stay true to what I believe in as a litigator, which is you always have a chance at trial. I mean, it's beyond a reasonable doubt, and you have to prove that. Do I think from these facts they had a right to use deadly force? No. You said it yourself. You can't use deadly force to protect property, and the force has to be equal, even if it's not deadly. Here, what we're talking about? I mean, I'm not going to lose the historical context here. I think these guys look just like the guys that killed Ahmaud Arbery. They just look like, Al, you could fill in the blank. And again, it's a racist situation. I hope the civil rights department of the U.S. Attorney's Office takes the case. I do think it's biased, and I don't think it would happen if Al was driving that truck. So we can't dismiss this point. If I was down there knocking on the door, they probably thought I was Jehovah's Witness, Nation of Islam, or some black guy in the neighborhood, and maybe I would have got shot at. Jennifer might not have gotten shot at. But we can't allow this to continue to happen, because it's just not fair. And I think this kid is going to be traumatized for this. He probably can't go back to work.
Oh, I mean,
when you hear gunshot banging, that's it.
I'm sure he is traumatized. You took the words right out of my mouth. I was going to ask Jennifer Brand, and thank you for that, Darnell. Jennifer, in terms of what he can do in terms of recovery, thank goodness he was not hit by that gunfire. That is the best part of this case, that he is alive and healthy, thank goodness, and can then handle, everything accordingly, maybe trauma therapy, whatever else he needs. What about recovery in terms of a civil lawsuit? Doesn't his family have a good leg to stand on here with him, trying to help him get through the court system and perhaps bring a civil claim against these guys too?
Absolutely. And I mean, while you say he wasn't injured, physically, no, but mentally, emotionally, I'm sure he was very injured and probably will be suffering for the rest of his life. I mean, how scary is that? He's just trying to earn a living and do a job, and then be shot upon for what reason? We don't even know really why or what they were doing or why they would attack him. He didn't seem to be doing anything to them or to bother them in any way. He was just merely delivering packages. So I think he does have a civil claim, but I mean, these guys, what do they have, to recover damages or whatever? Again, it's the same situation. They may be judgment-proof in terms of a civil recovery. We don't know what kind of property or money they may have, or whether it could ever compensate him for the harm that he's suffered.
Right.
It is like the Ahmaud Arbery case, and I think we're seeing this all over again, which is a really scary situation. People are just too quick to use their guns for no reason.
Oh, it's insane. It's so irresponsible. It's horrific. Darnell Crossland, let me go back to you on a point. Jennifer said something that made me think of this. If these two guys are a nowhere street in terms of money for a civil lawsuit, do you think there could be any liability that FedEx could have here? And I'm just wondering, why didn't this young man have a nice marked van with, the bright lettering and all that? I wondered if it does create a safety hazard with the van unmarked, and you wonder if you see somebody pulling in your driveway in a van like that and you're not expecting a package, you might think, oh, who is this? And if there's kids around, you might be wondering, oh, geez, who's driving this van? Is it, I wonder, do you think FedEx could be on the hook, Darnell?
Yeah, it's a very good question, and I just finished a case similar to that in federal court.
Yeah.
My clients owned a grocery store. There's a gas station. Some Indian clients I have, and one of the girls was flirting with the owner's son. The owner's son went to her house, and they did what adults do. But on the way there, she said, "Can you pick me up something?" He doesn't use drugs. He picked it up, gave it to her. They had sex. He left. She died of the drugs, and then now the store was being sued And the insurance company struck back in federal court saying, we protect against negligence if a potato chip rack falls, but not against that type of behavior. But ultimately, it stayed in federal court so long that the insurance company settled. In this particular case, you do go after FedEx, you do go after these people that were shooting, and you see what happens. Sometimes the insurance companies will say, you know what, we'll settle, just get us out the claim, and whoever's left stays in. So whether they're successful or not at trial, we don't know, but you do sue everybody because this kid was in a car, unmarked, and maybe FedEx could have did more to protect them.
This is just so sad. Again, this one opens up tomorrow. I mean, Al, we're just about out of time. Quickly,
okay,
go ahead.
There's a workers' comp bar. You can't sue your employer. Okay, so he's not going to be able to go after FedEx unless he's going to be able to prove that FedEx knew that these guys were going to be there with guns and they sent them there anyway. The interesting thing was the guy did go back to work the next day and they put him on the same route, which is certainly a bizarre scenario. Jeez. But, I mean, it shows to the testimony of what kind of a decent guy this guy is. He went back to work the next day. But you can't sue your employer under workers' comp. There's a bar.
All right, Al, thank you for that. All right, well, we got to leave it there for now. Jury selection starting tomorrow, opening